federal government have discovered a huge dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico where fish cannot survive. It is about the size of Connecticut, covering nearly 6.
The primary cause of the dead zone is nitrogen-based fertilizers that are washed down the Mississippi River by spring rains and into the Gulf.
Our state that was found to have high nitrate levels in its groundwater.
Every single day, millions of pounds of organic nitrogen from dead cell material, protein, urea, fertilizers, and other agricultural products reach our water sources. After entering the wastewater treatment, this organic nitrogen is broken down fairly rapidly and completely to ammonia by microorganisms in the wastewater treatment. Ammonia is the primary form of nitrogen leaving the wastewater treatment. Water sources, like lakes and rivers, receive the ammonia-rich discharge, which will stimulate increased growth of algae and plants in the surface of the water, blocking the entry of the sun and damaging the aquatic fauna and flora. When the ammonia from the source water reaches the water treatment plant, it reacts with the chemicals used to treat the water, affecting the entire water treatment process. Ammonia in drinking water not only can affect human health, but reduces the efficiency of water treatment plants and has a profound effect on the environment. Ammonia in water systems has become a major issue in Brazil and around the world, affecting water availability.
Our mobility program between the State University of Ponta Grossa and the Texas Humanities University focus on the role of ammonia in water treatment systems, its environmental impact and effect on drinking water availability. It consists of reciprocal visits of graduate students from the Environmental and Sanitary Engineer Master's Program at the State University of Ponta Grossa and the Arts and Sciences from Texas Humanities University. The program is supported by Water and Sanitation Company of Paraná State, Sanepar, and the City of Denton.
Hello, my name is Luciano Vargas. I serve as President of the State University of Ponta Grossa, located in the state of Paraná in Brazil. I am also a professor of civil engineering. As President, I understand and promote the internalization of our curriculum and research programs at our university and greatly value the important role of the partnership of the Americans Initiative, which has been an excellent vehicle to help us in increasing the university international collaborations. But as an engineer, I understand the challenge that lie ahead in terms of the availability of fresh water for human consumption and economic sustainability. Through our university's master's program in Environment and Sanitary Engineering, as well as other programs, we are committed to play a positive role in promoting sustainable development through education, research, and extension. All this to ensure that future generations have access to the liquid of life, water. I am delighted to support and be part of this important international project. Success for all.
Hello, I'm Corinne Phaeton, and I have the pleasure to serve as the Chancellor and President of Texas Women's University, located in Denton, in Houston, and in the city of Dallas, in the state of Texas. As you might be able to tell, my accent is not from Texas. I'm actually from Belgium, and I have spent the bulk of my academic career studying and researching the fields of second language acquisition and also the topic of communication across geographic, ethnic, and linguistic boundaries. So I'm saying that because I understand firsthand the importance of having international experiences in the quality education program that we offer our students, and promoting the internationalization of our curriculum and our research programs here at Texas Women's University is something that's really important to me. And I will say to my administration as well. I would also say that the international experiential learning experiences that are offered by the 100,000 Strong in the Americas initiative really help participating students to broaden their views of the world, but even more importantly, to see that the differences across countries and across cultures are often much more a blessing than a threat, as they often might think up front. Now, all that to say that Texas Women's University is really delighted to support and be part of this very, very important international initiative. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Adriana.
Hello, my name is Gabriel.
Hello, my name is Larissa Pacheco Wendler.
My name is Thiago Cookie.
My name is Skylar Wappus.
My name is Michaela Will.
Hi, I'm Bailey.
My name is Danielle Steffi.
I am very lucky to have been selected to participate in this program. After a pre-treat assessment test with questions about nitrogen water treatment systems, geography, history, and general knowledge about Texas and US, we knew that there was a lot to learn ahead of us. As the date of the trip to Texas got closer, so our excitement and anxiety. None of us has visited the United States. We knew that the success of the trip depended on letting our own personal interests to the side and focusing on the interests of the group. We are ready to learn the way water treatment is done in Texas, to experience the culture, to try new things, and to meet new people. Armed with our passports and visas, we embarked in our study abroad adventure. The trip from Curitiba to Texas via São Paulo and Mexico was an adventure in its own right. 2 times immigration customs, in addition to multiple security checks, gate chains and more, kept us very alert. After what it seemed as a full day of traveling, we made it to Dallas, where our professors were waiting for us. Our hotel check-in time was at 3 p.m, so we had to kill time and went to lunch to a local ice cream and hamburger place, and then to the Walmart to buy daily breakfast supplies, and after a shower and a full night of rest, we had our first visit at the Denton Reclamation Plant, or wastewater treatment plant.
During our visit to the Denton Wastewater Reclamation Plant, we learned that the main source of wastewater comes from houses. Industrial waste has to be treated before it reaches the plant, and even the drinking water facility has restrictions sending waste to the wastewater system. Staff at the wastewater treatment plant are responsible for making sure the community's wastewater meets the expected criteria. In general, wastewater is treated in a similar way than in Brazil, with a preliminary treatment to remove large objects and branches. Then a primary treatment where occurs the removal of settle-able organic and inorganic solids by sedimentation, and the removal of materials that will flow by skimming. Then a secondary treatment. This stage is the further treatment of the effluent from primary treatment to remove the residual organics and suspended solids. In most cases, secondary treatment follows primary treatment and involves the removal of biodegradable, dissolved and colloidal organic matter using aerobic or anaerobic biological treatment processes. Tertiary or advanced treatment is employed when specific wastewater constituents which cannot be removed by secondary treatment must be removed. Some individual treatment processes are necessary to remove nitrogen, phosphorus, additional suspended solids, refractory organics, heavy metals, and dissolved solids. However, advanced treatment processes are sometimes combined with primary or secondary treatment. For example, chemical addition to primary clarifiers or aeration basins to remove phosphorus, or used in place of secondary treatment, can be cited. Overland flow treatment of primary effluent. This will depend on the characteristics of the effluent to be treated. Then, water goes through disinfection with ultraviolet light and finally is discharged into a river which feeds one of the local lakes. Produced sludge goes to the landfill where it is used in manufacture of compounds destined for agriculture and gardening. All the solid waste coming from the plant is commercialized.
The next day, we visit the drinking water treatment plant. We were received with an assessment test and Mexican taquitos, donut, and coffee. After a brief conversation, we toured the plant. Water is brought from Louisville and Robert Lakes. The entire system is computer controlled. In general, the treatment is similar than in Sanepar plants in Paraná, with the main difference being that there's one interoxidation step with ozone and disinfection with monochloramines in Denton, while Brazil uses chlorine for disinfection. The water treatment system involves only physical and chemical process. Like in Paraná, the water treatment units are basically the same: coagulation, flocculation, sedimentation, filtration, and disinfection. We were able to see a backflow wash of filters which are inside an enclosed facility. Nitrogen concentration from the lakes that supply Denton is low most of the time, having a minimal impact of the physical-chemical system of the water treatment. However, when the surface water presents high concentration of ammonia, which is removed by biological process at the wastewater treatment plant, the ammonia can react with free and combining chlorine and can form the three chloramines species: monochloramine, dichloramine, and trichloramine, which can reduce the efficiency of the water treatment plants. The visit ended with a presentation summarizing the main aspects of the plant from the engineer point of view.
On the third day of the visit, we hit the road early in the morning to travel to Granbury, Texas, to visit a desalination plant. The plant has a combination of softening with lime, which includes clarifiers and filtration in sand filters. This part of the system can be bypassed and taken directly to the membrane filtration with ultrafiltration and reverse osmosis. It treats brackish water from the Granbury Lake. This plant uses chlorine gas for disinfection. The sludge that results from the process is compacted and sold in the form of a semi-solid substance that looks like clay. The entire process is complicated and involves a great deal of information which is difficult to digest at first, but the description of the stages, chemicals used, engineering, technical and administrative aspects of the plant were wonderfully described to us by Alan Richard, a retired Canadian Air Force who has been involved in the development expansion and running of the plant from the beginning. After the visit to the plant, we had our first real Texas food experience at Babe's. During the return to Denton, we stopped in downtown Fort Worth, Cowtown as many people call it. In the blink of an eye, we were already in the fourth day of the program. We were received at the Texas Women's University by Dr. John Bailey, who gave us a tour of the campus and the laboratories. We attended a presentation on the impact of synthetically produced low glycemic carbohydrates and its beneficial health impact, reducing diabetes, as part of the Department of Chemistry seminar series. From here, we had our first taste of real Mexican food at La Mexicana restaurant. We were introduced to tacos of several types and to hot sauce. We left lunch quickly to go to a tour of the First Responders program of the city of Denton. We learned how through 911 the police, paramedics, or firefighter respond to emergencies in the city. We also witnessed training of police students on how to restrain and arrest a person. We went back to the campus of Texas Women's University for a tour of the Art and Design program led by a Brazilian professor from São Paulo. Later, the Chancellor and President of the university received us in her office. That evening, we were hosted by Professors Abigail and Kurt at their home. There, we had our first meeting with all the 4 students that were going to travel to Brazil with us. It was fun. We were exposed to the art of making s'mores, a sandwich of marshmallows, chocolate, and crackers. Saturday arrived, we had tickets to attend a football game in Waco, Texas. Since the game was scheduled to start at 7 p.m., we drove to Austin, Texas, to visit the capital and learn of Texas history and government. In the afternoon, we drove back to Waco for the game between Baylor and West Virginia. It was a fantastic experience in a beautiful place. Driving throughout the rural areas of Texas was beautiful. We cut through little towns as we reached College Station, Texas, to visit land-grant institution of the state, Texas A&M University. We learned about values and traditions as we visit the Association of Former Students and the Memorial Student Center.
Money came and saw the visit to the waste and recycling plant of Denton. Private cars or trucks arrive to the landfill. They are weighed. After discharge, they are weighed again, and the difference in weight is the amount they have to pay. Most of the non-organic trash is separated by hand and recycled. Most organic materials are put in landfill, except for branches of trees and wood that can be converted to small pieces and used to produce mulch for gardens. After the tour, we visit a room that is used for education purposes for children. Finally, we had a conversation with the director and staff of the plant about the challenges of managing a landfill.
From a cultural standpoint, we learned a lot. We ate foods that we are never eaten before, and they were delicious. We ate local Texas food like barbecue, Italian pizzerias, Tex-Mex, Mexican, Chinese, Thai, Japanese, Indian, and Middle Eastern, among others. We even ate at a vegan restaurant, every place with its own local charm and history.
Our visit to direct reuse plant in Wichita Falls, perhaps the only one of its kind in the world, was not possible due to the fact that they stopped working, since heavy rains have removed the need. Instead, our group decided to drive north to see Lake Roberts and decided to stop for lunch at the world's largest casino, whose buildings represent no landmarks of buildings around in the world, such as the Eiffel Tower in France, the Big Ben in London, etc. We walked around the casino, mesmerized by the colored lights, but strolling with the bad odor of the cigar smoking everywhere. After going around throughout the various countries, we decided to leave and find a better place for lunch, this time a Chinese buffet. In our way back to Denton, we stopped at the Texas Motor Speedway and were very lucky to be allowed to visit the building and to take some pictures and videos of the racetrack. The last day of our visit to Texas arrived. It was time to wrap up and have our discussion session. The place chosen was the Reunion Tower in downtown Dallas. The view was fantastic. It revealed the first world highway infrastructure and the diverse illuminated architecture of the great city. We had beautiful present Japanese food for dinner. Later, we drove through the site where President Kennedy was assassinated and went back to the hotel to finish packing.
After early breakfast and last-second shopping, we picked up the TWU and City of Denton delegation and drove to the airport. In our way to Brazil, we stopped in Mexico City. We took airport taxis and went to the Zocalo to have dinner at the majestic restaurant with a view of the National Cathedral, the National Palace, and the Mexico City government building. We had the opportunity to walk and visit the cathedral. As well as the monument that indicates the changing level of the street throughout the centuries. We also listened to street opera singers while we entered briefly the Grand Hotel Ciudad de México, with magnificent stained glass ceiling and French architecture. We walked through the busy street to reach La Casa de los Azulejos, where we had coffee. Then we headed back to the airport to take our flight to São Paulo.
Mexico City was a great adventure to start our trip on our way to South America. After a long trip to São Paulo, with 2 additional connections and gate changes, we finally arrived in Foz do Iguaçu. The following morning, we hit the road to Argentina. From an immigration standpoint, we had to leave Brazil and enter Argentina with the respective changes of documentation. We made it to the Cataratas in the early afternoon. The day was beautiful. Sunlight created all kinds of effects on the mist of the water that was generated by the waterfalls. 2, even 3 rainbows at once. No words are enough to describe the natural beauty. The park is full of creatures that are not afraid of humans. They walk among the visitors as if they were staff of the park. We left Argentina to enter Brazil again, and after a deserved shower, we left to the Churrascaria Refane for great food and an even better evening of a cultural show.
We discovered sagu, a traditional dessert made out of little tapioca balls and red wine. It was a great way to drink without drinking. On Sunday, we visited the Brazilian side of Iguazu Falls. The forecast called for rain. Fortunately, rain came in the afternoon after the U.S. delegation took a rainforest tour and river safari to the waterfalls. It was a fantastic experience to see the falls from below, and we actually got completely wet. After the safari, we walked to the Garganta do Diabo. There was so much water that we could hardly see the waterfalls, but the feeling, the place, and the company made the experience extraordinary. After a late lunch at a restaurant in the park, we left to go to the point where Paraguay, Argentina, and Brazil come together, a site where the Iguazu and Paraná rivers join.
In the city of Foz do Iguaçu, we visited the wastewater treatment plant Ouro Verde, which uses biogas to generate energy.
Heavy rains limited the scope of the visit to Ouro Verde. With free time in hand, we visit the drinking water treatment plant of Sene Park that serves the city of Iguazu and surrounding areas. We had lunch at Churrasquería El Gaúcho, uniquely decorated with items that reflect the Gaúcho region and a great diversity of food and drinks, a cultural experience in itself. Later, we visit the Federal University for Latin American Integration, a university located in the Itaipu Park, designed to be bilingual in Portuguese and Spanish. We were given a beautiful explanation, and then we tour the university. We visit the laboratories. The research equipment is modern and top of the line. We went back to the hotel and got ready for the following day's visit to Itaipu Binational and the trip to Ponta Grossa.
During our last day in Foz do Iguaçu, we had a technical visit of the hydroelectric plant Itaipu, the largest hydroelectric plant in the world in terms of output, with 14,000 megawatt-hour. The technical visit included visits to all parts of the dam, including control rooms, generators, the hollow concrete structure of the curtain, the lake, and the spillway, among other things. After Itaipu, we hit the road again, this time toward Ponta Grossa. Fortunately, the almost 8-hour bus drive was divided into 3 sections, with one stop for lunch,
rice or naan,
and a second stop in the house of the family of Thiago in Guarapava. The hospitality was great, particularly since Thiago's mother only had a 2-hour notice that 14 people were going to be in her home for coffee.
We finally made it to Ponta Grossa. We checked in at the hotel and got ready for our first day of visits. Early the following day, we went to the 2 drinking water treatment plants of Sanepar and Ponta Grossa. We were received at a museum that displayed artifacts and documents used in the early days. The plant receives and processes water from Lake Alagados and from the Patangi River. In the plant, which treats water from the lake, microsands are added into the water to get heavier aggregates to facilitate sedimentation. This system of treatment is called ActiFlow. We took samples of both sources to measure nitrogen content at the UEPG lab later that day. We saw the backwash of one of the sand filters. The plants have the same treatment stages as the plant in Denton, except for the ozone treatment and type of disinfection chemicals used. After this visit, we changed clothes at the hotel, had lunch, and went to the State University of Ponta Grossa to listen to the presentation made by Kathy Galt about the City of Denton water treatment plant. After her presentation to a crowd of undergraduate and graduate students, faculty, and Sanipar staff, the 8 students went to the water analysis laboratory to test the water samples taken earlier that day for nitrogen content.
At the lab, we used the Jadal method to test for nitrogen in the local lake and river water. These waters feed into the Sanipar treatment facility to provide Ponta Grossa with clean drinking water. It was remarkable to see how the 2 groups of students had become one. With the help of Gabrielle, who was more familiar with the analysis, the group proceeded to test the samples. Utilizing distillation and titration techniques, the students successfully completed the testing and calculations. The sample from the Alagados Lake had higher concentrations of ammonia than the water from the Petangui River. The group was so excited. Students from the 2 countries, more than 5,000 miles apart, were binding together as a family.
While the students conducted their laboratory research on nitrogen, Dr. Luciano Vargas, president of the State University of Ponta Grossa, received in his office the group of representatives from Texas Women's University, the City of Denton, and the State University of Ponta Grossa responsible for the program.
After the excitement of the joint lab experience, we joined the TWU, City of Denton, and WPG administrators for a nice conversation with the directors of graduate studies, internships, and international programs. We were asked to introduce ourselves and talk about our research. The Director of Graduate Studies arranged for an impromptu visit of the multi-research lab facility where we were able to learn about the sophisticated laboratory equipment. Some of those I would like to have at TWU. That night, it was pizza time.
The following day was a holiday in Brazil. Thankfully, parks were open. We visited Vila Velha, a geological formation park where the symbol of Ponta Grossa resides, the cup. It was a 4-kilometer walk, with one side looking at the rock formations and the other the forest. We were happy to get into the van and hit the road again towards Curitiba, the capital of the state of Paraná.
Starving, we went to a Chinese restaurant where we were greeted in Chinese by the owners, Xi, as they bent their bodies and smiled to us. Our starving condition made lunch even better. We drove to downtown to take the tour bus. Curitiba is a big city, and because of the time constraints, we only had the opportunity to get off the bus at the Oscar Niemeyer Museum in the Botanical Gardens. The other 2 hours were spent admiring the various neighborhoods and parks of Curitiba from the second floor of the bus. In Brazil, if a holiday falls on a Thursday, the following Friday becomes an unofficial extension of the holiday. For this reason, we could not visit the DAF plant. However, we visited the Rio Verde wastewater treatment plant. After, we went to visit the water source of Ponta Grossa at the Petangui River. Although we were not expected till 5 days later, the manager of the plant was very nice and explained to us how the plant runs. We also went to Carambe to learn some history about the European immigrants who made the region so successful. Although it rained, that did not stop us from having fun and walking around the open historic park, with our park-provided plastic ponchos. After visiting the Park Museum, we went to try the famous pastries at Frederica's.
The last day of the program had finally arrived. Most of us used the early morning to walk around the city of Ponta Grossa. Around 10 a.m., we had our end of trip assessment and discussion at the hotel. Everyone had a chance to share what they learned and how it compared with their initial expectations of the trip, and how they might improve the program for future students. If I can summarize the conclusions, I would say that the trip was a great success, since it challenged all of us for the better. It made us richer, we formed international friendships, and it made us appreciate our interdependence as a blessing rather than as a threat. From here, the group went to the home of the Wycheck family for a closing lunch. The decorations brought us memories of our trip to Mexico City and Brazil, and the food that was specially prepared for the group was absolutely delicious.
First, I'd like to thank 100,000 Strong in the Americas for providing this amazing opportunity for the students both in Brazil and in the United States. I've been so impressed with the quality of the students, their education, and their perspective on each other's cultures, each other's science, the understanding of the wastewater treatment, drinking water. Everyone was really engaged in that process, which, to be honest, I was afraid that they would be more distracted by the wonderful cataratas and the cultural events, but the science was what really struck home with all of the students, and I think that that was a really important aspect of this trip. But also, I think that the cultural exchange was so important for each group to understand all of the similarities that we have, and then that are punctuated by these just kind of delightful differences, whether it's in our music or our food or our art, how we spend time in our city parks. All of that really struck home with the American students to see how life is lived in Brazil. Thank you again for this amazing opportunity, and we hope that we can continue this relationship, because I think there's so much for our students to learn here in Brazil and so many opportunities for the Brazilian students to learn in the United States.
This has been a great experience for everyone that's been involved, including us who were part of the chaperone. My boss, Joshua Adams, talks about the fact that learning is embedded in every experience, and we saw that firsthand here. The students obviously had the scientific component, which was to discuss nitrogen in the water, and they saw that and they were able to test it. But more importantly, as that was happening, alongside of that, they were making new friendships, they were learning a foreign language, they were experiencing a different culture, and they got to see firsthand the magic that is travel. As you say in the little book that we were given by Giovanna, that travel ends up being an enemy of prejudice, and we saw that firsthand here.
This trip's been an amazing experience, learning on so many different levels, getting to see the similarities as well as the differences in our water treatment and wastewater treatment process. The regulatory differences, some are pretty substantial, so it was interesting to see what was the same and what was different. The fact that they're still using chlorine gas and we're using ozone more now, that was one of the significant differences. But then there are a lot of similarities. just all of the cultural things we got to learn and seeing how the students interacted with each other was very fulfilling.
We spent our last afternoon at the local mall. After a walk to the hotel, we had a couple of hours to start packing before we went to the apartment of Professor Giovanna for a session of experiential learning on making tapiocas. Mandioca, or tapioca, is used as a main ingredient in many types of food in Brazil. What Brazilians call tapiocas is the equivalent to a large quesadilla, which can be stuffed with sweet or salty ingredients. I would like to report that I won the recognition for the most beautiful and delicious tapioca.
You've been great.
You're the star of the show.
As the last hours of our trip expired, we were on the road again heading to the airport, but not without one last surprise. As I tried to take a nap, suddenly a loud noise and vibration came from under the bus, waking me up violently. Vicente, our beloved driver, pulled to the side of the road to find out what had happened. A flat tire. After a few phone calls, another university bus came and took us to our final destination in Ponta, in the beginning of our marathon back to Texas and last experiential lesson on pollo or pasta.
At the end of the activities carrying on in our reciprocal graduate exchange program, it was evident that all participants became aware of the serious consequences to the environment, the drinking water systems, and the human health posed by the incomplete treatment of wastewater. Everything in the universe is interconnected. For every action, there is a reaction. Today, we are living the results of the human actions of the past toward our planet. However, there is still hope in preserving the precious resources in our wonderful world, while increasing the quality of life and the future of humankind through education, research, and community services. I invite all of you to work together in this sublime mission.